When we were in high school, we were training like a college program.
Explain to them how or what Blair Academy is for those who don't know.
Blair Academy is a prep boarding school. So we were kind of like a high school all-star team. I'm in the semifinals and I'm wrestling the reigning world champ from Iran. I'm losing 4-0. I hear a lot of commotion from the crowd. So I look up and he's looking at the crowd. He's like, this guy is not focused. And I ended up winning the match at the end, 8-8.
After this, I want Joey to put a gut wrench on you. It
Do it on
feels
camera.
like
Do it on
your
camera. Do it on
ribs-
camera. Do it.
Right on the rib.
Oh my God, dude! Holy shit!
But
Wow. Welcome back, everybody, to the On the Rocks podcast. I'm your host, Johnny, here with Mike Monica, aka Mons, yet again. Joey McKenna. Off camera, we were discussing your faith, belief in God, and it's funny. I think I mentioned this last podcast. I want to say 80 to 90% of the guests I've had on for the last 15 episodes has mentioned their faith, and I think it is a sign from God that I should tap in a little bit more. And I want to learn about your journey. Did you discover God recently, or were you always a big believer?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up, I'm a Jersey boy through and through. And here in Jersey, you go to Catholic church. That's just one thing you do. You wear a cross and you just live the life.
Yeah.
You know, you go to church on Sundays, the holidays, whatever it is, and that's kind of your faith. But, you know, I had a few different moments in my life that really sent me searching on deep self-reflections. And the biggest thing that really led me to my faith, and really I'd say where God found me, was in transferring from Stanford University to Ohio State. So I'd always grown up believing in God, went to Catholic church, but I only ever found myself really relying on God when things were really bad. You're down in the pits, right? Someone in the family dies. You're just praying, asking questions, trying to seek that comfort that we all desire deep in our hearts. And so that was kind of where my relationship was. It was really only ever in those really, really hard times. And so I went off to Stanford University for my first 2 years of college, and I went there. Everything was great. I was first true freshman All-American in Stanford history, which was an incredible feat. But I was out in this elite place, and in my sophomore year, I started feeling like I wasn't being elite in what I wanted to do. And it really set me on a deep dive. I didn't All-American at the NCAAs that year. And it really just made me look into my life and just start asking myself hard questions, right? Like, why do I make the decisions I do? Why do I believe what I believe? You know, how did I end up here? Is this the right place for me? And, you know, I'm at a really academically elite university, also athletically elite. They've won the Director's Cup plenty of times. But I just felt like I was in this elite place and I wasn't being elite in what I went there to do. You know, in that sophomore year, I've just always been a very disciplined, self-accountable person, and I'd always set these little workouts for myself. You know, I'd wake up early, go get a workout in, and next thing you know, I'd see that alarm pop up, be like, I'm just not really feeling it. You know, snooze, I'll hit it later. Never end up hitting it. And I wasn't missing anything that was accounted for by the coaches, anything obligatory, but, you know, I was denying myself what I knew I needed to do to be elite and to continue on the path that I was on. And so after I did an All-American, I just start really looking at my life. I'm like, man, I'm pretty unhappy here. I'm in beautiful, sunny California, but I'm not happy. I don't have the relationships that I need that'll help me thrive. I was around people that had a different mentality, different mindset than what I was really pursuing. And so I really started analyzing my life. I'm like, all right, well, how about the decisions in my life that I've made that really did make me happy? And I started looking at those, and they were all for the sport of wrestling, which was interesting. I had chosen to go to Blair Academy for high school, where Mons and I went to high school together, although we knew each other way back when in the Ville. But I was like, oh, wow, all right, that decision made me pretty happy. You know, then after I graduated high school, I decided to take a gap year to train with Team USA, have an internship, and that decision made me pretty happy. I kind of chose to go to Stanford on a whim, just more so for the opportunity. I was just excited about the fact that I could tell people that I went to Stanford University. And what I realized was in that decision, the only satisfaction I got was when people asked me, oh, hey, where do you go to college? I'm like, I go to Stanford University. Their eyes would light up, right? They'd be like, man, this guy's probably so smart. He's just wicked smart, and he's probably coding on the side, doing all this thing. But yeah, I just had good grades. I always just took everything I did with a lot of accountability and discipline, and that same thing in school. I'd be driving to practice, doing my homework in the car, all those things when I was a young kid. And but it just wasn't the place for me. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe I need to leave a place like this. Maybe I need to leave Stanford and go somewhere with more like-minded individuals. Maybe I need to make a decision for this sport. Could I survive here and could I graduate? Of course. But would I be happy? Would I be thriving? Would I be pursuing my passions? I couldn't answer that candidly. Mm-hmm. So sent me on that search. This was back before the transfer portal and all this craziness that we see in college sports. So I had to go have a hard self-reflection with myself. Like, man, what are people going to think if I leave Stanford University? You know, I felt like a lot of the decisions I'd made in my life up to that point were based on the reputation of others. You know, what were these people going to think about me if I made this decision? Oh, wow. Like, they'd be like, oh, man, Joey McKenna, that guy, he's done this, he's done this. Like, that's pretty sick. But I'm like, man, how vain is life if that's really what I care about? Really just what other people think of me. Like, I got to be happy in my heart. I gotta pursue my passions, and I got to make the hard decisions that will make me happy. And so I'm battling this in my mind. Like, man, what are people gonna think if I leave Stanford University? They're gonna think I'm an idiot. They're gonna be like, this is the best opportunity in the world, the best school in the world, and you're gonna go anywhere else? Like, what? I mean, Princeton, right? Yeah. Some of those other high-level schools. But, you know, with the schools I was looking at and the schools that were top-notch in wrestling, it wasn't anything comparable in terms of academics.
Sure.
So I really wrestled with that in my mind. And ultimately, I came down to pursuing my passions and what was going to make me happy. And that led me to Ohio State University. And when I was looking at Ohio State, I went into the room and there was just a motivation like any other, really from the wrestling side. But I had a few good relationships with guys on the team, namely Kyle Snyder and Miles Martin. And I knew that Ohio State had a culture of faith on their team. Their head coach was a professing Christian. Kyle was a good buddy of mine, and he was really growing in his faith at the time. And it's funny, he's actually younger than me by 3 months. And we're really good friends. But he's been a role model for me in that way. So I make this decision to go to Ohio State. So let me give you a timeline. So the NCAA championships were in March of 2017. I did an All-American, and this sent me on this little search. And I'm wrestling with all these thoughts. And I end up deciding at the end of May, early June, that I'm going to entertain other places. Mm-hmm. So I was looking at Penn State, Ohio State, Lehigh, and the University of Iowa. And I went on visits. I felt those different pulls in different directions, had a lot of hard decisions to make with the offers coming in, being recruited like a place like Penn State. It's the Bama of wrestling if you're not a wrestling fan. So it's that level. They've won 12 of the last 13 national titles, and I'm like, man, I'm being recruited by this place. But Ohio State, there was something different. So I knew I actually had a really good conversation with Bob Suriano, with Nick Suriano's dad, and he said, Joey, you got to make this decision with your mind, your heart, and your gut. You can't follow one of them. You got to make the decision where all three are in alignment. And when he said that, I knew where I needed to go. I knew where I needed to go, and that was Ohio State. It was actually the least off financially at financial offers at all the schools I was looking at, but I just felt a calling there. So I knew that they had this culture, and I ended up deciding August 1st that I was going to go to Ohio State. School started on August 17th. So I decided 2.5 weeks before school started that I'm going to go to this place. So I decide August 1st, and my birthday is August 3rd. So on my birthday, I'm down the shore with my parents, with my family, and my family's giving me birthday gifts, and my mom gives me this gift. I open it up, probably some beads, probably some clothes, and then there was a Bible. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. Right. I was like, oh, thanks, Mom. I'm like, what's this for? She'd never given me a Bible. Our extent of religion and faith was just going to church on holidays, on the weekends when we were around. And she said, I know that, Coach Ryan is a Christian. I know they have a Christian culture there. And so I figured you would need this. And that situation with my mom, her giving me that really and her saying what she said really put me in my thoughts. I had a little inner monologue like, this is interesting. I believe in God, but I've never really searched for, really explored faith on my own. It's never something that I took hold of and I took ownership of that I was going to explore. So maybe I will explore this. So I end up going to Ohio State, and the first week I'm there, I'm a new junior at a new school, big time school. And one of my teammates said, hey, do you want to go to this Athletes in Action Bible study on campus? I'm like, yeah, sure. And when I said, yeah, sure, I was like, all right, I'm going to explore my faith, but also I'm a new junior at this new school. Like, I want to meet people. I need to meet friends. I need to meet girls. And hopefully there are some girls at this meeting. So hopefully I can meet them there. So I end up going to that meeting, and it was fun. It was interesting. I felt like I'd learned more about religion and faith in that one Bible study than I had my entire life going to church. So the Athletes in Action director, his name was Carl, he said, hey, Joey, do you want to meet in the wrestling room next week? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So he comes in the wrestling room before practice, and we sit down, and he said, tell me about yourself, tell me about your faith, kind of how you grew up. And I told him, yeah, I grew up Catholic, going to Catholic church. I believe in God, but, I don't really know. I feel like I don't really know where I'm at. He's like, all right, well, let me ask you a question. I'm like, okay. He's like, on a scale of 0 to 100%, how sure are you that you would be saved? I'm like, seems like a loaded question. Right. So I started thinking in my mind, having a little inner monologue. I'm like, all right, I'm a pretty good person. I don't really lie too much. I don't really cheat, maybe on some school, but that's about it. Right. I don't steal. So I'm going through this moral checklist in my mind. I'm like, all right, what's a number that's pretty good? I'm like, probably 70 to 75%. That seems like a good number. So I say to Carl, I'm like, I'm about 75% sure. Carl just started laughing. He started laughing in my face. So I'm getting all nervous. I'm like, man, did I say the wrong thing? Was that the wrong answer? Yeah. What's going on? So I said, Carl, what's so funny? And he's like, no, it's just funny because, it's a pretty simple answer. I'm like, 75 wasn't the right answer? He's like, no, it's either 0% or 100%. Right. I'm like, what do you mean? And he started walking me through some scripture, telling me about, pretty much, it's called the Romans Road, and he starts telling me that we're all sinners, right? We all need a savior like Christ in our lives, and that he wants a personal relationship with each one of us, that it's not through some mediary or someone other than Jesus. And so I felt like in that moment, I was like, wow, 0% or 100%. It's only one of two ways. So that conversation in itself really sent me on that deep dive. I had the community, I had the team we had our own team Bible study. I started going to Athletes in Action Bible study. And, some people have like a specific date that they knew that they became saved. They started this relationship with Christ. And for me, I don't have a specific date, but it was through those conversations and through that I never looked back. And my faith started to open up my eyes in terms of wrestling, started to release me from a lot of the performance anxiety that I had in my career, just based on what I was focusing on.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. So Coach Ryan was our head coach. He was a Christian, but other coaches on our staff were too. And I've always been a good wrestler, and a lot of times more so in practice than in competition. When I'd go out to compete, I would just tighten up. I wouldn't be able to wrestle to the fullest of my ability. And a lot of it was just my mentality going in. And so I had a conversation with my coach, Tervel Delagnev, and he said, Joey, what do you think about when you go out onto the wrestling mat? So I started thinking about, all right, where's my mental space before I go out? What are my thoughts? And I started to realize that the three things I was thinking about going onto the mat were, I was afraid to lose, I was afraid to get tired, and I was afraid to get scored on. So I shared these things with my coach, and he said, Joey, all these things are based out of fear. You're going on the mat with a fearful mentality because you're afraid to get tired, afraid to lose, and afraid to get scored on.
Right.
He's like, and those things are all out of your control. We can control some of these things, and we can control our thoughts and focus on the controllables versus the uncontrollables.
Right.
So he said, let's focus on our effort, right? You can control your attitude and your effort going onto the mat, right? You can control your training, how much you're putting in, right? Which gives you the confidence to go out there and compete to your fullest. And you can also trust in the fact that God has a plan, and whatever that's supposed to be is going to happen out there on the mat. So as long as you give your all, your best, and you have the proper mentality going onto the mat, win or lose, it was all part of the plan, right? And you can move forward with confidence in that, irregardless of the result. And so that really started to free me and free my mind, and in a process, right? It wasn't like, boom, I overcame this performance anxiety. But he said, he's like, look, Joey, I don't care if the next match you go out there and you lose. I don't care if you lose the next 5 matches you wrestle, as long as you start putting these things into practice. Mm-hmm. And I knew he was, exaggerating a little bit. He didn't want to see me lose. That's not what he wanted.
Sure.
Right. But he was really trying to get me out of this binding mindset that focusing on these fear-based thoughts had me in. And it really freed my mind, and it's still something, right, I'm continually working through.
Yeah.
Wrestling is a lot more mental than it is physical. And, even Mons and I now talk about this, right, with where we're at, where he's at in his career, and how these mental shifts are really what are going to carry us to the success we desire.
It's so funny, man, because every good or great wrestler like yourself, and you are great. You said you were great. You're like, oh, well, I'm good. You're a great wrestler, phenomenal wrestler. Everyone always says that it is more mental than physical. And sure, but no, right? Like if I was an average Joe and I said to myself, I have full belief and confidence that I can walk on an NCAA wrestling mat and pin the next guy that walks against me, it's not happening. But the mental is almost like the gatekeeper, right? Skill acquisition is what's going to get you to become the best, right? But if your mental's blocking you and you're not allowed to let loose and let go on the mat, like you said to yourself, you're never going to get there. And that's why I love talking to other wrestlers or martial artists or people that train, because the applications then to real life are there. They may not be on a wrestling mat, but you may have to present something in a business meeting, or you have a really creative idea and you want to let it loose, but you have that fear of failure or what people are going to say about you. And again, you may have acquired those skills and you have what it takes to become successful, but for whatever reason, when it's showtime, you lock up. And that's what I've noticed the most with people that are religious, whatever their belief is, whether it's Christianity or it doesn't really matter. You know, as long as they give and they surrender to something bigger than them, it just frees them. It allows them to do what they really are set out to do. And I think that's sometimes the issue with like this entire generation of manifestation. Everybody wants to sit around and like write in their little books of like I ams and this is what I should be doing, but they're putting the cart before the horse, right? Like you acquired the skills and worked your ass off to become that great wrestler. And then your mind finally said, you know what, you are allowed to go out there and perform the way you should be performing.
Yeah. The difference is too also is Joey, you know, to his point throughout his whole career, he was living it every single day. Right. You know, he's living that every single day. It's a different thing. And a lot of the times, like even in UFC fights, you see like, oh, I want to be that person. Like, I think I could do that. But when the alarm clock goes off at 5 a.m. in the morning, all of a sudden that goes away because they're uncomfortable. They don't want to live that every single day. And I think that it's really important to live that life every single day. Stay consistent, which is the hardest thing. And, you know, I guess my next question to build off of what you said is, you know, what I like to compare things is you're on a staircase, right? And you see the top staircase, right? And it seems so far away rather than just looking at the next staircase and going to the next staircase and slowly moving up. So I guess as far as your career and that, I guess, match anxiety where those bad thoughts came into play, you know, how did you wrestle with them and still are wrestling with them to overcome them and kind of just focus on, let's just take the next step and not just, you know, time goes by, months go by, a year goes by. Am I really improving in that sense? Because sometimes I'm sure it creeps back in mid-match. So how are you kind of grounding yourself and continuously building, you know, on that?
Yeah. I think what you said is key, is that consistency, the consistent decision-making skills that every time you're faced with these little mental battles, mental struggles, you're consistently choosing the right way, right? You build those over time. It's just like conditioning, just like when you're working out, right? That resistance you face, every time you can overcome it a little bit more, right? You build that muscle up. And, you know, the faith muscle is the same way. Yeah. And in the sport of wrestling, it's been little mantras, right? Simplifying things. I'm always thinking, right, oh, I want to win this, but to win that, I got to win 5 matches. So how do I not overlook 5 matches to the result? Well, it's simplifying it. Hey, let's focus on 1 match at a time. No, let's go simpler than that. 1 position at a time, 1 point at a time. So that's my inner dialogue every time I'm going out to the mat. And my prayers is, Lord, just help me focus on the present. Help me be fully present. Focus on the now. 1 position at a time, 1 point at a time. Don't let me think about the results, but renew my mind in this too, right? Don't let me revert back to the old ways of thinking that I've had previously. And I had a really powerful experience of this last summer. My weight class is 65 kilogram, which is 143 in pounds. And I had the opportunity to go wrestle in international competition at 70 kilogram, which was the weight above me. So it's 154 pounds. So I was excited because I'm like, all right, well, I don't got to cut weight. That's really nice. But what I was more excited about was the opportunity to go wrestle free with less pressure because it's not my weight class. It's not the guys I normally wrestle. And there's things that I'm trying to overcome right now mentally that this is a great opportunity to do. There's not many times in the sport of wrestling when you can go into a competition stress-free, we'll call it. Right. And was it fully stress-free? No, of course, because there's still the anxiety, the butterflies, all that stuff still comes in. But in terms of the external, it was stress-free because it wasn't my weight. I didn't have the pressure of wrestling the same guys, having an expectation of the result. It was, look, I'm going up a weight. These guys are just as good. They're stronger. There's a lot different skills that are going to be in play, but let's see what we can do. And my first match, it's a 3-minute period, 30-second break, 3-minute period. So after the first period, I was winning 8-2. And I went to the corner and I felt my mind start thinking, all right, just hold on. Just win the match. 3 minutes left. Just win the match. And then I was like, no, keep wrestling. Keep doing what you're doing, and good things will happen. And I felt that old mentality come to the forefront of my brain, but I recognized it and was able to change my thinking of, no, just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing good things. Just trust it and keep wrestling. Ended up winning the match 8-4. But for me, it was more what I had to overcome in that match. I saw that growth step. I was like, wow, I recognized that thought, and it didn't just take over my body. I was able to control my mind in the moment and switch my way of thinking and continue to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Later that competition, I'm in the semifinals, and I'm wrestling the reigning world champ from Iran at the weight above me. And I'm excited for this match. USA-Iran is always a big matchup in the sport of wrestling, right? They're top notch. But this guy, he was kind of a showman. His name is Yazdani. He's always been for the crowd, doing big things. But I was like, all right, this guy doesn't expect this smaller American and whatnot to come out and beat him. But I end up taking a shot off the whistle, get taken down. I'm losing 4-0 at the break. And
I've seen this guy. This guy's fucking yoked.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
No joke.
He's big into the crowd, but which is what I really saw. So I ended up taking a shot. He threw me through, and the refs scored it 4 points for him. And I thought I probably scored some points on the exchange, but I didn't really know. So my coach throws in a challenge brick where the refs are forced to relook at the call and make a decision on what the call would be. When my coach threw the challenge brick, my mind starts going to the worst. I'm like, man, if they score this, it's going to be 4 points him. And if we lose the challenge, he's going to get another point. Then it's going to be 9-0. And then he only has to score one more point to end the match.
Geez, yeah.
So my mind is automatically going to these negative thoughts. Like, we shouldn't have challenged, should have just kept doing what we're doing. Like, what is going on? Then I hear a lot of commotion from the crowd. So I look up, and I see the Iranian fans in the crowd. They're like, Yazdani, yeah. And I'm like, what is going on? So then I look at my opponent, Yazdani, and he's looking at the crowd. He's like, I'm like, this guy is not focused. He's not focused right now. I'm like, look, whatever they score, and I was able to control my mind in that moment and be like, whatever they score this, it's okay.
He's out.
This guy has lost focus. You're present right now. You're in this. So just keep doing what you're doing, and good things will happen. And I had this overwhelming feeling that I'm like, I don't know how. I don't know what they're going to score this. It's still 4-0. They're still looking at the call. But I'm like, I just feel like I'm going to win this match. I don't know how, but I just have this feeling that I'm going to win this match. And I was able to control my mind at that moment, stay focused on the present, what I was doing, and I ended up winning the match at the end, 8-8.
Wow.
The call ended up going in my favor. They gave me 4 points, him 2 points. So it went from 4-0, potentially 8-0 or 9-0 in my mind to 6-4. I was losing.
So they scored you the takedown.
So they scored me a 4-point move, and then him 2 points for rolling me through.
Rolling you through. Okay, but they were originally going to
give
have it
all
0-4.
4 points to him.
Wow.
So they end up changing the call in my favor. Probably still a pretty controversial call, but my biggest takeaway was the focus.
How was his focus after you got scored 4-2?
Oh, he was sick.
He was.
He thought he was like, that's not right. You know, he starts arguing with his coaches.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't see this match. I gotta pull it up.
Yeah, you got to pull it up.
Very emotional.
That's what I was.
I watch every match of Joey's. I text him after every one.
You guys are like really best friends, huh?
Yeah.
That's all. Joey McKenna's huge comeback against world finalist Amir Yazdani. That's nuts,
he's a
dude.
beast.
I gotta watch a little bit of this. Oh shit, you are fast as fuck.
I get scored out right away, so it wasn't a smart shot. But
okay, so he's up 2-0.
Yep.
At this point. And now this is the position where he got points again.
No, it's towards the end in the big exchange because it ends up being a full 6-minute match.
Oh, it is okay. So he's up 4-0.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's why I was confused when he said 8-0 or 9-0. I was like, well, how did he get 8 points?
Yeah. He was already up.
So he's already
4-0.
up. He's not a big. Oh, he's a little. Yeah, he's bigger than you.
There's a weight class.
I mean, I'm always shorter than every guy I wrestle.
But he's not that much bigger than you. Like he's pretty. And now, but again, I think the biggest question I always have with folk style versus freestyle wrestlers, like, how do you transition over so well? Is it relatively the same sport for you?
For me, it is, but I've been doing freestyle since I was in 6th grade.
Oh, you have?
So I started super young.
Okay, so let's reverse that. How did freestyle help you out with folk style high school wrestling?
Yeah. I'd say just body awareness and technical prowess. I think in freestyle, you have to be a lot more technically savvy.
Right.
Where in folk style, I mean, we as Americans are known for grinding, right? Just wrestling really hard, out conditioning our opponents. And I think that's a lot easier to do in a folk style match. Scoring isn't as frequent because, you have to really control someone. In freestyle, you don't have to have the same control to score points.
Sure.
So you can just kind of take them and toss them, and you'll score points. Yeah. And so you're forced to learn more technique and be more technically savvy.
In freestyle, you're saying?
Yeah, than just base your output on full conditioning.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. So you think you had more... I was going to ask you about your technique. You have better technique because you were a freestyle wrestler.
I think so.
Is it just like the training you guys do in a class that's more technique focused, or?
Well, there's different techniques. There's different techniques that aren't prevalent in folk style. And so you have to learn those to even know what you're doing.
Right.
And one of the biggest differences is the top and bottom position in freestyle versus folk style. And I spent a lot of time early on getting good in that freestyle and Greco position of parterre. So now when I take a guy down in freestyle, my automatic thought is, how do I turn them?
And that's not common in U.S. wrestling. A lot of the guys, it's all feet. So they get on top and they're waiting 10, 15 seconds to stand back up.
Yeah.
If after this, I want Joey to put a gut wrench on you.
No. Do it on camera.
Like
do it on camera. Do it on camera.
It feels like your ribs.
Do a gut wrench to me right now.
Well, you gotta just squeeze him, I guess, from behind.
I'll just give you this squeeze. I'll give you this
right on the
squeeze.
rib, like you do to me.
So prop.
I'm tough, guys, just so you know.
Joey, hurt him a little bit.
So proper gut wrench. My right hand's coming, or my left hand's coming across. I'm locking this thumb right on this upper rib.
Oh, no.
And now from here, right, just like a boa constrictor, squeezing.
Oh my God, dude! Holy shit! Holy fuck!
But
wow!
I'm driving my feet and all
yeah,
that.
Your ribs crack.
So you're just okay.
Your ribs feel like they're just breaking in half.
Yeah, that's a good feeling. Thank you for that one. But that's a different feeling or position than freestyle, because you can't do that in
folk style.
In folk style, if I locked my hands like that, you're getting a point.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're two totally different. You're not used to it.
So many things about both sports I don't understand. Number one, I don't understand how folk style, why that's a minus point. And then, like I was saying to McFadden, some of the roll throughs in freestyle just seem like silly. Like, why is that 4 points? Because I can roll you over like a gator. What does that do? You ended up in the exact same position, just 360'd. There's nothing changed at that point. Why is that 4 points? I guess you proved to me that you can fucking roll me around.
Yeah. I mean, just
take
control.
You out of position, expose your back. I think that's the whole point of the freestyle. You have to be a little bit more savvy, to Joey's point, to not even get exposed, to not even get your shoulders exposed past 90 degrees for the other person to get points. Now it's even more difficult, right? And now you have to watch. Joey is really put together. If you watch him in any type of wrestling, folk style, freestyle, what I noticed is that his positioning is always so grounded to the mat. Like, even in folk style, he's never really exposing. Even if it ended up being freestyle, he's not exposing his shoulders past 90 degrees. He's always in really good position. And I think that's also a big point, third person looking in. is watching you wrestle is that you're always in great position. I think freestyle helped you in that way too with folk style, is that you're always keeping good position. You have to really, use your strength, all your might to get Joey out of position. You're still not getting him out of position.
Right. Are stances normally different? Because you seem to have a very folk style stance still.
Yeah, no, stances are the same for freestyle.
Okay. Why do I see a lot of like the European guys or these Iranian guys, they stand very straight up?
Might be Greco-Roman.
Greco-Roman.
It could be Greco, but also with freestyle, if a guy gets on my legs and I expose him, that's 2 points for me.
2 points for you.
So guys are a little bit more willing to let guys on their legs in freestyle because they know that they have a scoring opportunity.
And Greco's different.
Yeah, you can't touch the legs at all.
It's only throws.
Upper body, yeah.
All pretty much upper half wrestling.
That's why they're so upright.
Yep.
Okay.
Because they don't have to protect their legs.
You can't touch legs. You're just around the body trying to throw something, using all your strength.
You ever do Greco-Roman?
I have, yeah. Not much.
Not much.
I personally like freestyle a lot better. I like being on the feet, being able to take shots. I was never an upper body guy, but Joey does it all. He's thrown a lot, fair share of people.
Well, I'd say part of it was because when I started freestyle in 6th grade, I also started Greco.
You did.
So
okay.
I gained a comfortability of that upper body wrestling type, where a lot of wrestlers are really uncomfortable when you get them there.
Right.
So they'll start to panic, and then you can kind of exploit that area of weakness from them.
You're saying like when you are body locking or going for a throw, everybody else just kind of shells up and protects hips.
They don't know. They're not comfortable. They don't know what they're doing there.
Everyone hates it, dude. It's the worst feeling in the world. But that is what I think transitions the best to like MMA is Greco-Roman style, because a lot of guys, you can't be in like a folk style freestyle stance and be able to throw a punch or a leg kick, or you're at risk of getting guillotined and things like that. So that normally transitions over pretty well if you can learn how to body lock and upper body throws.
Yeah, and their footwork. Their footwork's incredible, right? They're not able to touch the legs, but they need to be able to off-radar a guy when they're coming to the body, how you're pivoting, how you're turning the guy's center of gravity.
You're taking the feet right out from under them without even touching them.
Yep.
Wow.
So their footwork is really good. They're really working on those kinds of things.
All right, well, speaking of technique, because I had the question for both of you. You both wrestled under what is probably known as one of the best high school coaches ever, right? Buxton, what was the major differences between him, and you may not know because you would because you were in other high school rooms. What made him so special compared to other high school coaches?
A lot.
It's a loaded question.
A loaded question.
A lot of...
I think technically he was kind of head above the rest in what he was showing us, what he was doing. I mean, there's even a ride now that people call it the Blair ride. We don't call it that because we grew up in the system and we never called it the Blair ride.
What's the difference?
It was a single wrist. That was our term.
I'll get it on you one of these days. I'll crunch your neck.
The terminology is different.
You want to get on camera?
But
on the ground.
we can move cameras.
Yeah,
Have me fucking getting choked up, I guess.
But yeah, he had a system. He had a system that he was teaching us through and teaching us under that we were all very aware of this system. Also, I think that when we were in high school, we were training like a college program.
Talk me through like a day in the life of a high school wrestler for you guys, and explain to them how or what Blair Academy is for those who don't know.
Yeah, so Blair Academy is a prep boarding school. For our time there, I mean, we were national champs 3 of my 4 years there, but it was a boarding school that we had teammates from other states coming in, being on our team. So we were kind of like a high school all-star team. But yeah, we would wake up, go to school from 8:30 to 3:10. Practice was at 3:30. We weren't allowed in the room until Buxton turned off the booby traps.
But you're ready to go with your headgear on, waiting outside that door. He wants to see you ready. If you're not ready,
we were chomping at the bit to get in the room and get into practice.
Pumping, like we're in a circle, ready to go, bouncing up and down, ready. We can't wait to get in there. We're like a bunch of lions just getting let out of the cage. That's what we're waiting. Then the doors open, then we're running in, and thunder starts playing.
Yeah.
Wait. Every practice?
Yes.
Yeah, every practice.
That is fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, it was epic. I mean, we were not allowed in the room until Buxton peeked his head out or until he came up, if he was already in there.
He'd be waiting for you guys, like behind the...
Some of the captains would like peek in for a second, and once they
see
saw
if he was in
let's
there.
fucking go. And the doors would open, we'd run in, and we'd start warming up and getting after it.
That's amazing.
But there were plenty of times, too, that we would get in the room and me and Mike be running around, warming up, and we'd be talking. He'd be like, "Get the fuck out! Get the
He said,
out!"
"Get the."
You're
Wait,
like,
why? Oh, because you talk too much?
No talking, man. Like,
he would send it. He
you're
would just
on-
kick us out of the room.
You got to be
everybody
ready to.
Where would you go?
back in the
up.
hallway,
And
standing
wait again?
at the door like this, waiting for him to come back out.
Like you're really, you feel fucking like shit. You're talking, you're playing with the number one team in the country and the number one coach in the country for high school, and you just let them down. And everybody knows it on the team. So they're fucking pushing you around, slapping you around. Like, you better get your fucking shit together, because now you costed all of us something. Something else is happening in that practice that he's gonna fuck us up in.
Like conditioning wise.
I don't know. Maybe it's live, or maybe I don't know. It's just he finds a way to fucking try to break you.
Yeah.
And he does.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that in my life. You guys had to wait to get in the wrestling room.
Yeah, and then so we'd be kicked out, and we'd be chomping at the bit to get back in. We got let back in that room. Be like, "All right, you ready to work out now?"
Yeah.
Be like, "Yep." He'd be like, "All right, let's go." Open the door, and everybody would start full sprint.
Yeah, full sprint.
Full sprint around.
We
want to
be there. We're putting in the extra effort now, because
no more talking.
We're trying to show Bucks, and no, we want to be there. And that's the culture that we had. And looking back, you don't get that often.
It's again, coming from a public school, a good public school, but just not even comparable to what you guys went through. Great guy of a coach, wrestled 1AA somewhere and knew his stuff, but he was like our friend. He would roll around with us. We'd kind of be blasé. We'd work our asses off, in and out of the room, but nothing like that. And he would yell at us, and we'd be like, "Come on, coach. What are you talking about?" He's like, "All right, we're back in." That fear that you guys had is so rare. We may have had it freshman, sophomore year, because you're young. You're more afraid of the senior wrestlers than anybody else. But then you're like, "Dude, I'm good. I like to train. It's enjoyable." If our coach kicked us out of the room, we'd be like, "All right, who wants to go get fucking frozen yogurt? This is pretty sick. A day off. This is awesome." Or you have to run another campus lap or whatever it is. It's a joke.
You would be the only person going to get frozen yogurt then. Yeah. And you probably wouldn't be coming back, because Buxton did a good job in, you should be grateful to be in this room. You should be really grateful and appreciative of him even being in the room and you being around such great wrestlers. And if you're fucking around, you're going to be the only one going out, and you're going to feel I remember if I got surgery, I am at practice every single day on the side, can't fucking wait to get back on the mat, because I know everybody is getting better. Everybody wants to be there. Everybody's getting better. And you're like, fuck, am I ready yet? Can I get on the fucking mat? And you're just trying to speed up that process to even be on that mat again and have the opportunity to even be around those people and wrestle with those guys.
It's so funny. Everyone nowadays, especially online, they try to avoid fear as much as possible. Fear is what drove you two to become great wrestlers. I remember being in 5th grade, we had a psycho football coach, and we were really, really good for our age, undefeated. We had a team that was unscored upon for 10 fucking games. It was savages. And I remember one day, again, when everyone was super afraid to talk or do anything wrong, running campus laps, some kid cut a corner, blows the whistle, he goes, "All right, kid, sit in the middle." And this kid sat in the middle like this. Again, we're 12 years old. Everybody's gonna run around you, and we're gonna sprint, and then we're gonna do leg lifts, and we're gonna do bear crawls, or whatever. We're in agony, and this kid has to sit there and suffer, watch us, and he's like, "Because of you, this is why they're all doing this." And the thought of that is just fucking mind-blowing. You're doing this to a 12-year-old. It's these mental games that you're allowed to do at that age, and it shapes you. 28 years old, I will hop on a jiu-jitsu mat. There's no that has to come from within. Nobody else is really pushing that out of you. My buddy the other day, you may know him, Tom Bishke. He wrestled on the NJ team. T Cake Boss. He wrestled.
I think Dave told me.
He's one of my best friends. So I trained jiu-jitsu, and the other day he was kind of like, "Do you still have that competitive edge?" And I sat there for a second. I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "I like training, but when things get really hard,
I don't know about that, because that happened when you were training for that.
Right. It takes things like that.
You went by yourself, didn't you?
It takes.
You went all the way to AC. You trained by yourself. You cut down a lot of weight.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have it in you.
But it's different. It's funny you talked about it before, the motivation and getting really excited about things. You said it. You watch a motivational video, or I can watch you wrestle. I'm like, man, it's hyped. I want to go start tomorrow. 5 o'clock hits. You're like, nah, I'm going to snooze it. But even more is you make it a practice, right? You're proud of yourself. And you get snapped down really hard. And someone's on top of you. And you're like, this is not it. This doesn't feel the way it felt when I was watching that fucking video. And it never will. And now I just transitioned my mindset to be like, training is going to suck. Lifting weights is going to suck. But if you want to earn the right to watch a video like that or make a video like that or rejoice in winning, you got to put in this shitty work right now. And then it's going to be worth it. It's not going to be worth it during these hard fucking trainings. That's never going to feel as good as you want it to feel.
Right.
That's the point.
I love that you said that, John, because one thing that that same coach, Tervel Delagnev, the one that asked me the questions about my mentality going into a wrestling match, also said something super impactful. Is like, you know, when you're sitting here doing a podcast, thinking about going to win the Olympics, like, yeah, you're fired up, you're motivated, you want to. But when you're in that suck and you wish to be out of it, sitting there in the comfort of your own chair, remember that, right? You got to remember, I got to remember this feeling right now of being comfortable, wanting to do hard things. But when I'm actually doing hard things, remember why I'm doing them. Yeah. That I chose to be here. I wanted to be in this moment.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be wishing it away and not want to be in this moment anymore. Like, man, I can't wait till it's over. Like, right? That's typically our thought when you're in that hard moment. You're like, man, I can't wait till this is over. But no. When you were comfortable, you wanted to be here. But now that you're in it, you want it to be gone.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm always just preaching to myself. Like, hey, you say you want these hard things. Just remember that when you're in those moments.
Even on the phone leading up to the Olympic trials, and you said, you know what, like, nobody asked me to be here. Like, I chose to be here willingly. You know, and that's something that you have to remember when you're in the grind, to Joey's point. I remember him saying that. I think that's a huge important thing, because in some way, if you do put a lot of pressure on yourself, it kind of takes that pressure off and it kind of fires you up. It turns that pressure into more of a fire. Like, nobody, think about it, nobody asked me to be here. I'm challenging myself. I put myself here against the wall to try to make something great happen.
Yeah.
You know, I was the one that did that. Nobody else asked me to do that. I could just be on the Jersey Shore on the beach, fucking just chilling out and thinking about me wanting to do this and how that feeling would be, but I'd never take that step and do it.
Yeah.
But he's doing it.
That's the scariest thought, is like mid-suck, you're like, the fuck am I doing? Like, there are plenty of people that are just living normal lives at the beach, hanging out right now. It's so complacent. I can easily do that. But like you just said, it's like anything else, right? When it's summertime, you wish it was cold. When it's winter, you wish it was hot. When you're in that suck, reflecting on doing stuff like this probably helps you. But I think it's helpful for people out there that see somebody like you that truly seems untouchable, right? You're a next level type of guy. And I see a guy like you and I'm like, nah, he must enjoy the suck. He doesn't. That's the point of it sucking. His suck is maybe a lot harder than mine because he's reached that threshold, but he still doesn't enjoy when he has to run and he's cutting weight and it's 6 a.m. and he's getting beat up in practice. Nobody enjoys that. But what does feel really good is winning. What does feel really good is after practice when you can finally sit down and relax. And what really helps me sometimes is like, you got 24 hours in the day. Maybe you're sleeping 8. If you're training for 2 hours in the day, which could be a really good if it's an hour, that's not a lot of time. No. Right? Suck it up for an hour each session. And then the rest of the day, you could fuck off, sit in a chair and do what you want to do.
And that's why wrestling's a big mental sport. You know, at that level, everybody's great. Even D1 wrestling, everybody's great. You know, it's what's happening outside of the mat. What are you doing to feed yourself to become that great wrestler that you aspire of being? And, you know, I think Joey is just a perfect example of that. You know, he never rushes anywhere. You know, I just always look at his lifestyle and his way of doing things like, I rush everywhere. I'm trying to be here, there, and there. Like, he knows where he has to be, and he's not going out of his way. Like, he's doing things on a set schedule every fucking day, and that had to play a big role in your whole life. And you still do it. Like, Joey has the time to not rush. Right. He called me today, 10 o'clock, right on the fucking dot.
That's so funny.
He's pulling up. I see him out the window. Like, he's right on time. Yeah. He's not rushing. He knows exactly when he has to wake up. He has his regimented schedule that he sticks to, and it's what works.
Yeah, that's that discipline just from an early age. And I think it's harder sometimes to find that at an older age, whereas you guys had it very, very young. So even you, right? You snap into a routine and you're able to do it. Or if you needed to train, if you have to compete in, you know, jiu-jitsu or wrestling, right, and you'd be able to get back into a crazy disciplined schedule, right, because you've done it, which transitions me into asking the question, what are the major differences between Stanford's room and Ohio State's room? Wow,
yeah. Lots of things. From a lot of different areas. One, coaching staff-wise, the type of guys they were recruiting. I would say at Stanford, right, we were a lot more academically driven team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, that if wrestling didn't work out, it's all good, right? You're at Stanford, you're graduating from Stanford, which is totally commendable, totally honorable, and I actually understand. But I just didn't feel that way, right? Which kind of led me to search. And when I went to Ohio State, it was like these guys just, all they wanted to do was be a national champ. They were just fueled by, right, the wrestling success, but they were just almost like just they were just brainwashed almost of like, hey, yeah, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're supposed to do. This is what we want to do.
Right.
But it was contagious. It was cool to kind of simplify it. I felt like at Stanford, you're with a lot of intellectual people, so you're overthinking a lot of what you're doing.
That's a good point.
Where when I went to Ohio State, yeah, I never lost my intellect I was still an intellectual guy, but it just simplified everything to what actually mattered. Not my thoughts about it, my feelings about it.
Put you at ease.
Yeah, it did.
Man.
Because I was like,
wow,
I can just trust in what we're doing and not have to think about it. Well, is this going to work? Are we doing things the right way? I just trusted it, right? Because there was proven performance to go behind that on why I trusted it. But also, you're surrounded by a bunch of savages that are doing the same thing. You're just like, yep, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, you took the red or blue pill. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And you just do it.
And I think that's where religion and faith come in. And like life sometimes can and should be binary, right? It's one or the other. And you picked and you decided that I'm going this path. This is what I'm not going to second guess. And I don't know. I would assume Stanford might have had some half or in-betweeners in the room at least. You know, people that were on the team, they liked wrestling, they were really good athletic ability, but they were more so focused on their jobs or careers or intellectual side, whereas the Ohio State room, all they cared about was wrestling.
Yeah.
And that eases anxiety a lot. And faith does the same thing, where you're on the path of God, you don't question things. Whereas people walk around nowadays so anxious about did I make the right decision, or what is the right decision, or I have 1,000 options and maybe I should pick this one or that one. Like we have way too many thoughts of what we should be doing versus going and doing and trusting in a higher power. Yeah. And I would assume that's why leaning into faith helped you out so much with something like this.
For sure. And I'm at fault too. Sometimes that's one thing I want to be more firm and unwavering in is taking action. I think I am a thinker, right? So I do overthink a lot of things, and I definitely take my time in reflection and analyzing decisions and stuff like that. But sometimes you just got to act, right? You just got to act. And with my faith and my belief, it's like, look, I just need to act. And, you know, I got two paths I could go down, right? They're probably both good options. And no matter which one I choose, it's probably going to be God's plan for me, right? And so however I'm led in making that decision, those things might change. But ultimately, where I end up is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And that's what I have to remind myself, too, is like, right, when I'm in a crappy season, it's a tough time, got a lot of decisions on the plate, and you're thinking through things, it's like, I'm in this moment, right? I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Although I don't want to be, and it's hard, and I have a lot of things, a lot of conversations to have, a lot of things to work through, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And now the approach is, look, this could be a test, right? This is a test of how faithful are you when shit hits the fan.
Yeah. It's funny, right? Like when you're a young guy, and again, you guys went through Blair, and I want to ask you about the question. Blair's always been great, but I believe you guys were part of what is considered Blair's best team, no? Like when you guys were juniors or seniors, wasn't that one of Blair's best?
Probably, yeah.
So you've seen the upper echelon of upper echelon. What? Damn, bro.
We're going to put a TP here so I can write your message.
Or just do this, or say some shit.
What happened?
John's frame, he's like here in the frame. And we're missing him.
Yeah, I need to see my pretty face.
You were just talking about fucking cutting something.
I know, yeah. Cut me off from here. So I'll just like restart. So you guys are again part of one of Blair's best teams. So you're the upper echelon of the upper echelon. And you said you found your faith a little bit later in life. And it's probably because, again, you don't overthink a lot of things when you are a kid because you're just in the mud. You know what I mean? So what was it like being part of that Blair team? Did you see a transition from when you were a freshman to a senior?
More so in terms of my own like leadership, I'd say. I think when I came in, I was the lightest guy on the team. I was the 103 pounder. So it was like, I'm just going to do what these guys do. And I believe things are going to turn out well, right? Like these guys are the best of the best. And I'm just going to do what they do. So we just kind of kept doing that. And it was the same way. We were from freshman to senior. We were like this.
Yeah.
When I was a freshman, the seniors walked alongside me, brought me into the fold. And so when I got to that senior year, right, it was the same thing. Every year it was like, how can we be closer as a team, do more things together? And I think that's why we had such a strong culture, right? We were hanging with each other in the off time on spring breaks.
Going to Malonis' house, chilling out.
Yeah.
Having a great time. Yeah. We did everything together. And I think, when I went to Duke, we didn't have that much of a brotherhood. Yeah. And, when I think back, it's like in anything in life, like you got to surround yourself with the great people like yourself. And they play a big role in your whole life and your success. I truly believe that. I don't think you could just do things by yourself. That doesn't exist. And people that say that are full of shit. And I think at Blair, we literally did everything together. We wanted to be around each other. And if you felt like you were missing that day, felt like you had severe FOMO. Like you just want to be with your team, but everybody's just being better.
You just want to be your boys, man. Yeah.
You just want to be with your boys, but your boys were everybody on that team.
Yeah.
Like we did everything together. We had great times. And you knew that like there was no anxiety like I'm doing the wrong thing.
Exactly.
Like I'm spending my time on the wrong thing. It's like I'm supposed to be here, and whatever these guys do, I'm doing. And we just fed off each other, and that's super important.
It is, and everyone's so isolated nowadays. Like even with work, again, I don't work. So this is this is work, and I have these guys to be a part of. But like if I didn't, I'd be so alone. Like I don't know why you can't establish that brotherhood with people that you work with because it seems so competitive, whereas you guys were on the same team, you were riding or dying with each other. And I just wish that people found that, or at least they tasted that initially in life, because you need that feeling when times get really tough.
I think also, building off your point, I think it's also important to have a little bit of alone time as well, just to reflect, have time for yourself to even think about what you need to do.
Yeah.
To be like the guys that you're looking at, those seniors that were killing it, you know what I mean? Accomplishing those goals. And I think, looking back, I wish I had a little bit more time to have that, because I always wanted to be around people. And I was in the nightlife. I was in a lot of things that I like to do, right? I like to DJ. So I think, now I really cherish the time that I have with myself and my own thoughts. And I think, you could maybe speak more about that, Joey, how that played a role with you, because, there's so much noise going on all the time.
Yeah.
And once that shuts off, that's who you are. Those thoughts that are popping up in your head, that's who you are at heart, from the core. How are you, modifying that? How are you improving? What is that self-talk that you're talking about? Who are you looking at? Who are you trying to emulate? And what do you have to do? So I guess maybe speak on that and, the alone time that you had with yourself, and you probably still have, obviously. What are you feeding yourself on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's one thing that for me, whether it's a big decision I face now and I have to make, or post-competition, need to unwind, decompress, I like getting out in nature. I like getting out in nature, I live in Philly right now, so I live in a concrete box, right? Surrounded by concrete, more concrete, just traffic noise. And I don't actually get to hear the birds chirping, the leaves rustling, and things like that. And when I get in those moments, life becomes simple.
Yep.
Life becomes simple. I can actually sit with my thoughts, hear them, and start to analyze, like, all right, what's true, what's not true, right? Because our mind also feeds us a lot of things that aren't true.
Sure.
Right? But you can only ever discern between those things when you've been able to practice sitting with them and realizing what's real, what's not, where's my heart at, and start to connect the dots. So like for me, even next week, I'm going to Colorado, Utah, and Portland. And
just because?
I have a wedding, then a retreat, and then a clinic.
Okay.
So I have a few things, but in my downtime, I'm going to be getting in the mountains.
Yeah.
I'm going to be going on some hikes, sitting with my thoughts, praying a lot, and just figuring out what's next, right? We're at the end of a Olympic cycle, going into a new one. And, you know, I have the mentality, all right, LA 2028. But also, back to my point before, it's like I'm looking at LA 2028 macro level, but on the micro level, year by year, right? Day by day.
It's 4 years is a long time.
4 years is a long time. And a lot can change in that time. And so for me, it's like, where's my heart at? Or where's my heart at? Where's my mind at? Where's my gut? Where are these things aligned? And on what? Is it on competing? Is it on outside endeavors? Where is that? And then how can I start taking action towards those things?
So as of right now, you are going to
Yep.
compete in the,
Yep.
or at least go for it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's
go.
awesome, man.
I feel like my best years are just ahead of me. I mean, look, I look in the sport of wrestling. I look at guys like Kyle Dake, David Taylor. They didn't make their first world teams until they were my age. I'm 28 now, right? Granted, they were sitting behind a hammer for a while in Jordan Burroughs, my teammate down in Philly.
Yeah.
But those guys had their best years in the age range I'm about to hit right now.
Yeah.
And that gives me a lot of confidence. And I also feel like on the mental side of things, I'm just starting to break through.
That's
right?
awesome, man.
And so it's exciting because there's a lot of inspiration, a lot to be excited for going into this next cycle.
Yeah.
But again, I got to simplify it in my own mind. Just can't get ahead of yourself.
Right.
Got to keep it in the moment.
It's exciting for, you know, you especially, but even me now in a newfound relationship here to be able to watch not only you compete, but your journey there. You know, like you said, 4 years is a long time, but I'm just excited to watch you day by day and hear how you're progressing and like you said, mentally. And I want to play a little game with you because you mentioned guys like Burroughs. Let's build a wrestler, right? I want you to build from different attributes: mental, sheer athletic ability, best takedown. Like, give me a couple attributes of what makes a great wrestler and pull from different people.
Yeah. All right. I would say Jordan Burroughs double leg. You need that in the arsenal.
Okay.
You need that power, that pop, that explosion that he brings, and seemingly nobody in the world has been able to stop. You know, he's the GOAT now. I would say Kyle Dake's intellect. That guy on the mat is more savvy than anybody I've ever watched. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's disrupting you so you can't do what you want to do while he's in control of he's like the puppet master out there with his movement, motion, right? So I'd say his movement, motion, and intellect, because those things that he's tying together to stay a step ahead of every single person that he wrestles. I would say Kyle Snyder's ability to make adjustments. I think from my perspective, he's a good friend, but he has the ability to make adjustments after feeling something one time, right? And then in that same match, can make an adjustment to prevent that from happening again. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the biggest things that separates the best wrestlers from good wrestlers and great wrestlers, is the ability to make mid-match adjustments on the fly, just like they feel it once. All right, that ain't going to happen again, right? And make those adjustments. Strength, Frank Molinaro. Dude is Gorilla Hulk was his nickname. He's super strong, the strongest guy I've ever wrestled.
What's he wrestle at?
He wrestled at my weight, 65 kilo.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But just a bull. And just tough as nails.
Yeah.
So that's 4. I think that's good to build a wrestler.
As far as the mindset and lifestyle, just from my understanding, I would assume JB, and I know that he has a great lifestyle that he created for himself.
Right.
Yeah, I'd say JB and Kyle Snyder would be both of those.
Who's the most athletic, like naturally gifted wrestler you've ever wrestled?
That I've ever wrestled?
Yeah.
Oh, Jordan Oliver.
Yeah, okay.
Jordan Oliver. And high wrestling IQ. He is a really smart wrestler. It's hard because sometimes I watch him, and I lost to him in the 2020 Olympic trials. He won. I really wanted him to qualify the weight because he had asked me to be his training partner for that. I was the alternate. but he ended up losing a really close match by playing the game.
Or something?
Yep, a 3-2 match, scored on at the end to lose and not qualify. And sometimes I watch this guy, I'm like, man, just do more. You're so good, right? But you're not that I don't know whether you're holding back, but you're being so strategic and tactical about it that it's almost becoming a detriment.
Yeah.
Like, do more and you'll win. And so for me, like him, just savvy, raw talent, like, and wrestling IQ, he's just so good.
Yeah.
So good.
I think everybody that's or has experience on a mat has been through that, or vice versa. Is like you're going against a guy that just has skill, and you're like, thank God he doesn't know how much potential he has, or else he'd be kicking my ass right now. The only reason I'm beating him right now because he doesn't know. Like you see them in jiu-jitsu, whatever, they take a shot or they're going for a move and they're half-assing it because they're a little bit too insecure yet. I'm like, man, thank God he does not know yet. It's like him. Like he gets on a jiu-jitsu mat and he hasn't been training as frequently right now, so he's a little bit hesitant on things. I'm like, dude, you could blow right through me if you fucking knew. And that's why I wanted to ask you the question. Obviously, Joey McKenna didn't mention any attributes from Joey McKenna. If you were to pick something from him that makes the perfect wrestler, what would it be?
I think there's a lot of things. And I always tell Joey this, and I hope he can distinguish that I'm not being biased in any way.
That's right.
Just because I'm his
okay.
best friend.
You're supposed
when
to be
I call
biased,
him
bro.
like, Joey, just fucking let go, dude. Because when I see him let go and wrestle, he is the craziest, quickest, most technical wrestler that I've ever seen. Every time, and I talk about it with my dad all the time. And when I see Joey let go, and for instance, when you were wrestling 70 kilograms, you're letting it go more. And I would see him, and he's just like, dude, nobody could stay with him. Nobody could stay with his speed, his mat awareness at all times. And when he turns it on, like he has a sick double too. Like you have a sick, quick, lightning quick double.
Yeah.
And I think an attribute I'd take from him is just, I would say his speed. I mean, his speed is lightning quick. I mean, there's a lot of things I'd take from Joey, but.
After watching that initial takedown, that was pretty intense. Do you think, because you mentioned a lot of like the fear hopping onto a mat in college, do you think that sort of stemmed from being like this child prodigy back at Blair or even before Blair?
In a way, I think a lot of it had to do with just expectations of myself, other people of me, and just like what I was supposed to do. Right? You're supposed to beat this guy. You're supposed to win by this many points. So I think I carried a lot of that onto the mat.
Sure.
That really prevented me from wrestling to my full capability. Where now, I mean, it's just a different level. I know guys are good. If I beat this guy 2-0 and had an off match, it is what it is. I still got my hand raised.
Sure.
And I'm going to look at that match and learn some things. But I didn't have that open of a mind when I was a kid. It was more like, I would have much rather nobody scored on me and won 2-0 than score a lot of points and give up points and win 15-4, right? I won by 11 points, but the guy scored 4. I would have rather win 2-0 because I felt like it was more dominant because they couldn't score on me. So I was always battling those things, and again, I was afraid to give up points. And I hesitate to say give up points because there's a difference between giving up and getting scored on.
Sure.
Right? But being okay with getting scored on and coming back and wrestling just as hard, than just the mentality of like, well, I'd rather do nothing and not let them score and maybe sneak one.
Yeah.
So it just changed my approach.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you remember the conversation on the call, and I was talking to Joey because it's different when somebody else is looking in, and it's like in a tournament. What I noticed, in the past with Joey is that he's beating up a guy, but then the guy might score, and now for the remaining of the tournament for the next match, even though he won, he's now thinking like, shit, somebody already scored. Right, and it could stop your momentum, right, and just letting go. Like I just don't want to get scored on, and that's a big mental part where you're in a long tournament with 5 matches against great guys, and the competition's gonna get better and better. Like, how important was it for you to adjust, in those brackets in those tournaments and how did you do it? Where you had to just say like, listen, these guys, I have to be okay with people are going to score on me.
Yeah.
I just have to keep wrestling as hard as I can, and I'll pull out in the end. You know, what kind of went through your mind, and was it a struggle for a long time, you know, going through that tournament?
Yeah, it definitely was a struggle, and a lot of it is letting go of a perfectionist mentality. I feel like I've had that perfectionist mentality,
Sure.
right? Everything I do, I want to do it well. I want to do it to 100%, want to make it perfect as possible, but then come into the mentality that nothing is perfect, and it's okay to not be perfect. And when you get your hand raised, is anybody worried about you getting scored on? No,
Right.
They're not, right? So in the grand scheme, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
You got to let go of this perfectionist mentality and that everything has to be as you expected, right? And kind of what he's talking about in those moments, I feel like there were times where I'd be up by 5, get scored on, and then it was like, oh crap, what's going on? And I think a lot of it was, right, I had the expectation that I could do a certain thing in a match.
Yeah.
And then when that expectation doesn't meet reality, I panic, right? So it's like, now what I need to do is change my expectation. It's like, because reality is going to be reality, and whatever it is, whatever happens on that mat. But if I have an expectation of a certain thing and then it doesn't happen and I can't adapt or adjust, that's a problem.
Right.
So I had to change my expectations, and I created a little mantra before that event at last summer in Budapest. And my mantra was, expect to fight first and foremost, because wrestling is a fight. Expect to fight because not every match is going to be, this is a controlled fight. Wrestling is a controlled fight. So expect to fight and be ready mentally to fight and to earn every point and every opportunity through grit, skill, and will. That was my purpose statement. Expect to fight and to earn every point, every opportunity through grit, skill, and will. Through grit, because sometimes you just got to get tough, get gritty, right? It's not going to be pretty. You just got to grit your way through. Just get tough. Through skill, because I value skill. I value technique, right? So that's also going to come. And then will. What about your heart, right? How bad do you want it? So simplifying it down to that was like, look, if this is my expectation when I go onto the mat and I'm going to expect to fight for 6 minutes, no matter what happens, expect to fight and expect to earn every single thing. You don't deserve anything. You got to expect to earn it. That whole mantra shifted the way I approach a wrestling match. It's like, I don't care who I'm going against. If I know I can 10-0 this guy, I'm still expecting to fight because it is a fight.
Yeah. Can you reflect on one match as being your favorite?
Yeah, I can. And surprisingly, it's a match I lost.
I had a feeling you were going to say that, man.
Yeah. I don't know why. I'd say my favorite match was my NCAA finals match against Yanni Diakomihalis in 2019. It was my senior year. I was going for the NCAA title. And the reason why it's my favorite match is because that's one of the probably really one of the few matches in my career that I walked off the mat and I truly can confidently say and believe that I gave everything I had, and it just wasn't my day. That was it.
It was a crazy match. I don't know if you saw the match.
I saw, yeah.
Yeah, and all right, there's some controversial calls in there too, but I just watched it. I was at the National Wrestling Hall of Fame this past weekend. I pulled it up on their little Jumbotron thing, and I watched it. And I was watching it knowing the outcome, that I end up losing in overtime at the end. But I was just in awe watching it. Like, man, I felt so present. Like, I remember it. I felt so present, so free. And, like, I walked out there with 19,000 fans in the stands, and I didn't hear one person. It was me and that mat and my opponent once he finally got on there. And that in itself was an achievement, was getting to a place, right, that flow state, that people always talk about and that people strive for in athletics, extreme sports, life, whatever it is. There's a lot of different ways you can have those moments. But that was one of the first times in my life that I ever really experienced that peace of being present in the moment in a wrestling match. And yeah, I ended up losing and taking second. And I'm not saying that didn't stink and that didn't hurt, but that's my favorite match because of how I felt. And, you know, for me, it was a spiritual experience being out there in that moment, being as present as I was. I just felt we're always looking to the next thing. It's hard to really fully be present. Technology, everything. It's hard to fully be present. And when I had that moment, I was like, I gave it my all. I was present, and just wasn't my day.
And you got that match back. Was it that year?
Yeah, later that year. I did get that revenge match.
He beat Yanni in a freestyle match.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
And it's funny you don't reflect on that. Did you feel as present during that one?
I did. Yeah. I did, but it was different.
Yeah.
It was different.
Because now it's kind of like you got him back. You didn't get, that's a different, I would say, circumstance, I would assume.
And it was easier to be free, I guess, in that.
It's not
everybody's watching that.
Yeah, he beat me the last time. It's not the NCAA title on the line.
It's so funny, man. As we get older, you realize life really isn't about what you do. It's just how you feel when you're doing it. And moments like that, I don't know when it hit me, but it really shook me up when I was like, I don't know how many moments like that I missed out on because I went through what should have been very impactful and put me in a flow state, and it just didn't because I was thinking about the next thing or I was too nervous, you know. And I had a pitch for my tech startup, you know, investors or whatever it is. Like you said, you kind of have to embrace the suck. You wanted this, right? You have to enjoy these moments. And it finally clicked for me where instead of getting on stage and blacking out and not remembering what just happened, I'm going to get up there and enjoy my time. I don't care if I get a yes or a no after it. You have to enjoy these moments because they're far and few between. And that is, I had a feeling you were going to mention something that almost was like a loss because we talked about it, I think, with Dave, those matches or things that happen in life that you perceivably won, but you almost like you never think about them again because you were so close. If one thing changed, you would have lost. And that fear scares the shit out of you. You don't even want to think about it again. Like Dave didn't.
State final.
Dave didn't want to watch his. He had he had a college match.
It was a state championship in high school.
Oh right, he didn't want to watch it. He didn't want to talk about it. And I was like, you won though. He's like, yeah, but he literally, like, in his mind, it was like, if I watch it too many times or something in the universe can shift and that won't happen again.
He thinks that he could possibly lose.
It's insane, but we all go through those moments of like, holy fuck, thank God I skated by.
Yeah.
Never again am I going to think about that. And it's a blessing that you're able to reflect on that moment and say, hey, I lost, but that was such a beautiful moment for me. And I'm assuming the guy that you were, competing against.
Yeah.
It was sick.
Yeah, it was sick.
That's awesome. Well,
But
listen, but you learned something from there that's invaluable that now you can carry on for the rest of your life. And we end every podcast with asking the guests 2 questions. I could assume what your answer is going to be for the one. What has in your life, doesn't have to be wrestling related, what has been the lowest of your lows? And let's follow that up with what has been the highest of your highs?
I'd say the lowest of my lows just in my mind had to have been really that self-reflection state I was in leaving Stanford and that, because it was just such a big growth moment for me as an individual, and really how I would perceive the world after that I didn't know how I was going to get through that moment. I didn't know what people were going to think. Candidly, my parents were pretty upset about it, right? But I was a big boy and it was really the first big boy decision I had to make in my life, right? That I was taking complete ownership of, nobody else had an influence in. And so that whole the period of time leading up to the decision, I would say, was really low for me. I also had a MCL sprain at the time, so I was dealing with an injury in a negative headspace and all of this coming on at once. So that was just a really difficult time where I feel like that was really, really low. My highest of highs, I don't know. I'd say moving to Philly. moving to Philly is my highest of highs because it was the first step in me really kind of blazing my own trail, and I felt like I had a lot of conviction in knowing what I wanted, which is why it was a great, like, I knew what I wanted, and I knew I was going there for a purpose, and I was going to blaze the trail. I was going to kind of blaze the trail in a new club and building a program kind of from scratch. I felt like I tried to do that at Stanford, but then I just went to a great program, and then it was like, all right, let's see how much of a leader I really can be, right? Will people follow, and what will that look like? And what we've been able to build down in Philly at the PRTC over the last 5 years has been pretty incredible.
That's great.
So it's just a proud moment for me in terms of my individual life and what I've been able to help build.
Another recent high of high, which we love to hear. I joke around that in this room, whatever the reason is, people always share that their highest of highs tend to be pretty recent. And I love hearing that. And, I'm sure I can speak for Mike when I say you handle and compose yourself so well. You speak super well. This has been a great conversation. I can feel that, more is coming your way, and the good is right around the corner. So thanks for coming on, man. I'm excited to watch your journey. Now I have somebody to look forward to. 2028. I have somebody to root for. So thanks for watching, guys. That's it for today. Like, subscribe, share, all the good stuff. Cheers.